We don't like the fact that we have to come out here on his birthday. We don't like that we have to come out here on Father's Day. So they don't like the fact that he's in jail, but he still has life in him.
The new governor-elect of Missouri has made it clear the man in prison for their son will be home with his family sooner rather than later. Lieutenant Governor Mike Kehoe said again he'll send former Kansas City Police Detective Eric DeValconeer home. That promise came in his first press conference since his election night win.
DeValconeer was convicted in the 2019 26-year-old Cameron Lamb. The former detective entered his backyard without a warrant, and he's currently serving time at an out-of-state facility. Fox 4's Malik Jackson live at the Jackson County Courthouse tonight. So Malik, you spoke to Lamb's parents this afternoon?
That is correct, Bria. His dad says if it had not been for their faith in God and the strength that he has given them, the last nearly 5 years would have been unbearable. Cameron Lamb's mom, Lori Bay, says this whole process has been, quote, disrespectful. But despite this news, their resolve will be unshaken.
But this is what we do.
For Lori and Akil Bay, their holidays are spent here cleaning and maintaining the gravesite of their son. It was December 3rd of 2019 that now former KCPD Detective Eric DeValconeer killed young father. He was convicted 2 years later and sentenced to 6 years in prison. Despite legal appeals, the conviction hasn't changed. But now a friendship with Governor-elect Mike Kehoe may allow him to stop serving time.
I would consider Sarah a good friend of my wife and I's. I met Sarah and Eric before he was imprisoned, and I would say wrongly. I believe we need to have Eric's back. And I've been very vocal about saying, should I succeed in running for governor, DeValconeer will be home with his family. I still am hopeful and prayerful that that happens before I get into the governor's office.
It brought tears to me. You know, it did, because to me, this has been a disrespectful process, and it has been something that has been rumored for some time.
The claim by Kehoe that the ex-detective was wrongly convicted has been denied by the state's highest courts.
My son was not privileged. He wouldn't have been able to say, oh, well, I know this family right here, so since I know this family, will you let them free?
Look at the miscarriage of justice here. Look at how many times his case has been in front of some type of judge, and they have mentioned that he is responsible. What does that say to us? What does that say to the community?
We reached out to current Governor Mike Parson for his response. A spokesperson responded saying that he is considering the clemency petition filed on behalf of DeValconeer, but he has not made a decision. As for the Bays, they say up until this point, they haven't even gotten an apology, and that is something that they still want. John, Bria.
All right, peace and blessings, ladies and gentlemen. Peace and blessings, all praises to the Most High. I'm Richard Taylor, and there you see what is the true definition of privilege or institutional racism, where Eric DeValconeer, the Kansas City police officer who was convicted, found to have lied, tried to plant evidence in his cover-up and taking the life of 26-year-old Cameron Lamb. He is now home. His conviction of 6 years was commuted by the now governor of Kansas, of Missouri. Even before that man that you heard talking got in office, he said he was going to let him free because Sarah is a friend. Now, I don't know if Sarah is that officer's wife or that officer's mother, whoever. But as the family, you heard the family say, this is a total miscarriage of justice because that officer has exhausted all of his appeals, even so high as to the Missouri State Court, Supreme Court, and they upheld his conviction of second-degree involuntary manslaughter for his reckless actions in taking the life of young Cameron Lamb, 26-year-old father of 3. And I can't go on without mentioning how my brother Malik Jackson sounded so much like Martin Luther King. I've never heard a newscaster sound that way. They always have this distinct, John, you have that voice, but he sounded like Martin Luther King Jr. little cousin, Malik Jackson King. But I thank my brother for his reporting. But this case is a classic case, once again, of institutional racism. Now, how did we get there? It was in December of 2019 when Cameron Lamb and his girlfriend had an argument, a breakup, a lover's quarrel. And in the midst of that, the girlfriend reportedly packed all of her things, moved out of the house. Now, in that exchange, while she was leaving, it was alleged that Cameron, probably full of emotion, chased her through the streets. He had the truck, she had a Mustang, right? And so they said he was chasing her through the streets, and police were called. And the police didn't witness anything but minor infractions of Cameron Lamb. And so evidently he had went back to the house. He got back to the house and backed this car up in the garage. And I guess it's an open garage. As he's backing up in the garage, he picks up the phone, calls some of his ex-girlfriend peoples. Once again, I've been there, a little breakup, you calling everybody, yo, where's she at, man? Tell her, man, this, that, and the other. She's an emotional time, right? While he's dialing the number, Eric DeValcanier, who had snuck around the backyard, broke through the fence with not a warrant, with not permission to go in his backyard, and no probable cause. He unloads on young Cameron, ending his life. And his rationale says that he saw Cameron reach for a gun, and he thought that Cameron was about to shoot his partner, who was walking up on Cameron from the front, as he should have done, because there was no reports of violence, of any danger, of any guns. Cameron Lamb owned the gun. However, that gun was in the garage on the steps. He did not take it with him in the midst of him chasing his girlfriend. Now, what happens next is even further evidence that this man is a criminal, he's a liar, and he should have stayed. He should still be locked up to this day. He radios on the, radio, the police radio, saying, yeah, that, there's no other suspects. And he tells the operator, said, well, no, there's nobody else but the lady in pink. And she told me that, there was an altercation with some guns involved, trying to cover his tracks. However, the lady in pink, which was Lamb's roommate, and was standing on the porch and witnessed everything, in court testified that she never had that. She never said that. They never even talked. Matter of fact, he didn't talk to anybody before he went in that backyard and executed Mr. Lamb. And then later on during the trial, when he did, go to trial, he had to testify to that as well. And once again, he didn't take responsibility for lying. He said, well, I overheard her talking to some other officers about that, which once again was a lie. But what happened? They waited for 8 minutes, not rendering Mr. Lamb any aid. And during that interim period, he succumbed to his injuries. And then to add further insult to injury, once again, trying to make it seem like they were on the call for this dangerous instance, him and his partner, Sharp, went to the ex-girlfriend's house, or where she was staying at, with guns drawn, guns blazing, saying, hey, where's the driver of that Mustang? We heard guns were involved, which was another lie. All the while trying to paint this narrative that they're looking for this dangerous situation when it was nothing but a lover's quarrel and some traffic violations. And during the court, as the trial proceeded later on, even his own partner said, I never saw him with a gun. I was never threatened. And so initially, of course, they didn't want to charge the officer. There was not a lot of cooperation by the Kansas City, Missouri police department. And the police department chief, Rick Smith, actually referred to Cameron Lamb as the bad guy, which exhibits their bias from the beginning. And to further muddy the waters, trying to cover himself, DeValciner, the shooter, when he provided an update of the scene, claimed that a gun was found on the ground under Lamb's hand. But another upstanding officer who was on the same scene and cleared the scene said that he never saw a gun on the ground, but they did see the gun in the garage on the steps where he had left it. And so this guy went to so much lengths to try to paint Cameron Lamb as a criminal. So much so that when they found Lamb's body, when they processed the scene, there were no bullets in Lamb's pocket. But later, during an autopsy the next day, they said they found 2 bullets in his pocket. Like, this guy right here was really trying to paint this narrative, create this scene that he had to shoot an unalive Cameron. Other lies. They said that the truck was running when the shooting occurred, but the keys were found in Lamb's pocket and not in the ignition. I mean, we can't make this up. This guy made about 3 or 4 lies in an attempt to clear his name, to paint this narrative that this guy had a gun, was a danger to society. But in the grand jury trial in December, the guy finally admitted that he never saw a gun. He was focused on the cell phone. In his testimony, said that, they were investigating Lamb driving crazy and whatever offense, and may have been exchanged between the truck and the Mustang, trying to paint the picture that, Lamb was shooting at his ex-girlfriend. But finally, they did decide to investigate this situation. But there were very serious problems with the investigation. They said that Kansas City Police Department refused to provide probable cause statements in the use of force. They had Eric DeValconier's former boss, Sergeant Richard Sharp, oversee the investigation. They didn't question DeValconier during the investigation. And they forwarded a case against Lamb for consideration to our office 2 months after he was shot. What they forwarded a case that Lamb had to this particular DA or prosecutor's office. So all of these things they did in an attempt to shelter this guy. So much so that 3 months, the department completely stopped cooperating with the prosecutor's office. And they brought the man in to testify, and he talking about, I was scared istless. I started shooting at him, believing that he was going to shoot Troy, and I ran, shooting backwards around the corner of the house, freaking out. Every time I sleep, I see a 10-second portion of this. Now, once again, he's the victim. Finally, they did charge the man, and they charged them with first-degree involuntary manslaughter and armed criminal action. And he eventually went to trial in 2021. And he was convicted. He was convicted of second-degree involuntary manslaughter, and he was allowed to remain free on bond until 2023, when he was given that 6-year sentence. So he turned himself in, and he's only been in jail a year some change, before the man that you just saw, championing him, saying he's in prison wrong, when all of the courts, all of the evidence, all of the investigations from the Supreme Court on down said this man is guilty as charged. This guy is going to commute his sentence as soon as he got into office. But he didn't even have a chance to do that, because as you heard Malik Jackson King Jr. say, that governor who was sitting was going to consider the clemency package or petition that was already before him. And what did he do? At the end of the year last year, he commuted Eric DeValconier, deceiver, devious, deviant DeValconier. They commuted his sentence, so now he is home. What a miscarriage of justice. I feel for that family. Of course, they do have a wrongful death suit that is still, I guess, pending. But what does this say to the American public? What does this say to the layman like me and you? If I was convicted of doing something like that, shooting someone, planting evidence, all of those things, would I be given the benefit of the doubt by my friend, the governor, who knows my mother or wife and says that I'm convicted wrongfully? Against all evidence to the contrary. This is America. This is what I mean by there are two separate systems. Whether he's law enforcement or not, he should be held to the most high standard, the highest standard, rather than being able to weasel out of this by his connections with the governor. Y'all tell me where I'm wrong at. 919-587-7782. Peace and blessings.